everyone, and welcome back to another video. So, I just thought I'd do a quick run through on what my deck list actually is in this game. Nobody's actually asked, I just thought it'd be interesting to show. So, I do actually need to change it up a little bit. I do actually need to change it up a tiny little bit. So if I go into my deck, branded Dragon Maids. And yeah, this is the deck list that I use. So I've got a Despian Tragedy to use as discard fodder when I'm using Fallen of Albaz. When I'm using Branded Fusion, I use Despian Tragedy as discard fodder because when it's discarded to the graveyard, I can bring any Despian from my deck to my hand. So that includes Aluba, the Jester of Despia, Dramatage, and Ad Libitum. Just max C hand traps. Hand traps are basically common staples in the game nowadays. So this is a good going second card. If they start special summoning a lot of monsters, then I can just use that and draw cards every time they special summon. Nurse Dragon Maid. So this is literally used as a combo extender when I'm using my other Dragon Maids. Ash Blossom, it's a common staple card, everyone knows how this one works. You just negates, it's a quick effect negate to when they try to add a card from deck to hand, special summon from the deck, or send a card from deck to graveyard. Parlor Dragon Maid is for sending either a level 8 Dragon Maid to the graveyard, or Dragon Maid changeover to then bounce. So then I use Dragon Maid changeover's effect from the graveyard to bounce the Parlor back to my hand, and then fusion summon the Sheu. Edge Imp Chains are used as fusion fodder when I'm going into my Lubellion, because it's one Dark Monster, one Fallen of Albaz. Chamber Dragon Maid. This one is literally just for grabbing a Dragon Maid tidying, so I can use it as a bounce. Fallen of Albaz, the common staple in the deck, which is used as discard fodder. It's used as a main card, and it's a super polymerization on legs. So if we take super poly, allows me to discard one card, fusion summon one fusion monster from my extra deck using fusion monsters either from either field as fusion material. That's what Fallen Albaz does. I could use this effect once per turn. Aluba is when he's no more special summoned, I can grab any of my branded I can grab my branded fusion, I could grab my Despia Theatre, I could grab branded Lost, any of my branded cards I can grab from the deck and bring it straight to my hand. Incredible Ecclesia of the Virtuous, again, is discard fodder, and is also very useful for bringing Fallen of Albaz from the deck, special summon to the field, and then he immediately uses his effect. Tri-Brave Mercuria, if I have any of my Fallen of Albaz fusion monsters out, then I can use his effect to basically negate anything, I believe it is. Yeah, it's basically just to negate anything. Spriggan's Kit. Honestly, I don't want a couple of these things in the deck. Didn't want that in the deck, so I don't need that. It's basically just a Aluba, but I also have to return one card from the hand to deck, and she can also be special summoned if I have one of my Albaz fusion monsters out. Blazing Cartesia, her effect is just I can special summon from her hand if I've got a Fallen of Albaz in my graveyard, so using Branded Fusion I will always have a Fallen of Albaz in my graveyard, and I can also use her to make more fusion summons. And if a fusion monster is sent to the graveyard while she's also in the graveyard, I can bring her back to my hand, which is a common play. Bestial Drake is just a body on the field if is just going to end up being a body on the field for if the enemy decides to use light or dark monsters, since they are the most common in the game. Dragon Maid Airness is used for essentially special summoning one of my 3 Dragon Maids and going into fusion players. Chaos Dragon Lavinia. I don't even know why I added this to the deck, honestly. It just seemed like a good idea since I have a lot of dark and light monsters, mainly darks. So, with me having a lot of dark monsters, I just thought it'd be a good idea to add him to the deck because I can banish 3 cards from my graveyard to special summon him. Again, these are just combo extenders, but I can also use his discard effect to negate an effect on the field, just like a Forbidden Droplet would. Dramatage of Despair is an excellent extender for a combo, so I'll use him. I'll generally grab him with Despian Tragedy from my hand and then try and get like a polymerization into my hand or something like that, so that he gets sent to the graveyard and then gets special summoned to the field. And anytime a fusion monster is summoned at Fusion Synchro Xyz or Link is special summoned after that, I can negate an effect on the field. Ad libitum, I genuinely don't know why he's in the deck, I just thought it was a good addition. If this card is in your oh right, okay, so I can special summon from banished or graveyard if I use him as fusion material. Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, all I need is a dragon on the field and I can special summon him and special summon one of my many dragons from my hand to my even these ones, I can special summon them from my hand to the field. Half his Feather Duster, plain and simple, destroys all spells and traps on their side of the field. Polymerization and Fusion Substitution are only in the deck because of Fright Threat Patchwork. I use Fusion Substitution to get, once I've discarded a Albion from my extra deck to the graveyard, I will use this as discard fodder so that I can then return him back to my extra deck the next turn. And Allure of Darkness, nice and simple. If I banish one of my dark cards, I will generally try to use Tri-Brigade Mercuria, because I can add, if this card gets banished, then I can add 1 Fallen of Albaz or 1 monster that mentions it, except for Tri-Brigade Mercuria to my hand. So, and then it just lets me draw 2 cards, which lets me go +2 in card advantage. Fright Threat Patchwork is literally a +1 in card advantage, just so I can grab a Edge Imp from my deck and a Polymerization card, so this is always classed as Polymerization, so it allows me to grab them from the deck and use them as discard fodder or fusion, just allowing me to go into more fusions. Dragon Maid Hospitality is I've only got that in the deck for Nurse Dragon Maid, so I can special summon her to the field to bring back another Dragon Maid to then possibly go into a Dragon Maid fusion. This is the Dragon Maid fusion card. It's literally there just for being grabbed by Chamber or Parlor Dragon Maid, and I've also mentioned I use Parlor Dragon Maid to discard it to the graveyard to then bounce Parlor back to my hand to then use it as a fusion. Now the main card for the deck, Branded Fusion. It's a really good card because it allows me to use my fusion materials from basically anywhere, so hand, deck or field. Excuse me. So I can use my materials from hand, deck or field. Normally what I'd do is I would grab a Branded Fusion, I'd use Despian Tragedy and a Fallen of Albaz to then summon Lubellion, as you've seen in a couple of the videos, and then use Tragedy's effect to grab a Dramatage, and then use Dramatage and another, probably like an Edge Imp and a Polymerization to then summon the Masquerade the Blazing Dragon. But this card is basically what my entire combo centers around. This is just another combo extender. It allows me to just fusion summon as much as I want. Allow me to extend my fusion plays. So then, let's say I've gone into my Lubellion, I've gone into my Masquerade Dragon, and I've got a Aluber on the field, and I've also got a Dragon Maid in my hand. Then I could then use the effect of this to fusion summon a Dragon Maid Sheu, because it's any fusion. This card allows me to make it so that my fusion summons cannot be negated, and they cannot have cards activated in response to me fusion summoning. And if I do fusion summon, I can add one Fallen of Albaz or one monster that mentions it per turn. Caught by the Grave, another really good hand trap. Well, quick play spell actually. But let's say I place down an Aluva because that's all I have in my hand to try and grab a Branded Fusion. A lot of people will immediately try and use Ash Blossom to negate that. I can then use Call by the Grave to negate the Ash Blossom. Plain and simple. Forbidden Droplet is just an extremely good card if they've got a lot of monsters on the field and I don't want them to attack me for as much, or if they're going into a massive combo and I have no say in what they're doing, which allows me to also negate their effects by discarding cards or using them from the field. Branded Opening is a card that I use to try and get a Luber out of my deck, because it's essentially giving me a guaranteed way to get into Branded Fusion, and that's basically all I use this one for. It does have a negate. It does have a negate destruction while it's in the graveyard for anything. I can't special summon except for fusion monsters. If a fusion monster would be destroyed by a card effect, then I can basically banish this card and it would negate the effect of the destruction on one of my fusion monsters. Now, Branded in Red allows me to bring back a Despia monster, which is any of my Despia monsters or one of my Fallen of Albaz, and bring them back to my hand, which allows me to then extend combo plays or go into a combo play during the enemy's turn, which is fantastic. But if I do fusion something, then I will generally try and go into Lubellion, because I will immediately use Lubellion's effect to jump into something else. Infinite Impermanence, really good hand trap. It's just to negate a monster's effect on the field. Let's say they're special summon an Aluber. I can then use Infinite Impermanence and say, no, you're not getting your Branded Fusion. Dragon Maid Tidying. If I control a dragon monster on the field, I can then bounce it back to my hand, or back to the extra deck if it's one of these kind of dragon monsters. And it also allows me to bounce one of their cards back to the hand as well, which I generally use against Xyz monsters or Link monsters or Synchro monsters or Fusion monsters that cannot be destroyed by card effects. I will then bounce it back so they have to spend more materials trying to get it back out again. Branded Banishment. The Dragon Maid Tidying does actually have a second effect, where if it's in the graveyard, I can special summon a Dragon Maid from my hand or graveyard in defense position, but it returns to my hand at the end phase. So I will generally try and use that in conjunction with Nurse Dragon Maid to then special summon one of these two from my hand or graveyard. Oh, no, from my graveyard. Sorry. Yeah, from the graveyard, and then go into a massive combo play once again. Branded Banishment allows me to bring back any of my Despia or level 8 or higher fusion monsters from the graveyard. So let's say they decide to destroy my Mirror Jade. After I've already used his banishment effect, I will bring him back with this, say no, I don't want to special summon, and then I'd be able to use his banish effect again because it's a soft once per turn. Solemn Judgment, negate anything for paying half my life points, fairly simple. Branded Retribution is a really good card because it allows me to negate essentially any special summons by returning one face-up fusion monster from my field or two fusion monsters from my graveyard. My graveyard is always going to be full of fusion monsters because of Mirror Jade's effect. His effect is to send fusion monsters to the graveyard, and they have end of turn graveyard effects. So that's everything for the main deck. So for the extra deck, we'll start with Dark the Dark Charmer. So since my deck's full of dark monsters, I just thought it'd be a good card to use. I generally only use these cards in mirror matches against more Despia decks because I want to disrupt their players as much as possible to make and further my plays. So it allows me to special summon from my opponent's graveyard to a zone this points to. So it would be, you got your 5x2 grid, it would be either there, or there, or there. It's just a good card, and when it's destroyed by when this is destroyed by card effect, I can add one dark monster with 1500 less defense from my hand to from my deck to my hand. So he's got 0 defense, he's got 0 defense, he's got 400. Basically, all of my dark monsters in my deck, except for this one, have very little defense. So it's just a really good card to use. Predaplant Verte Anaconda I will generally use if I cannot get an Eluber from my deck. So if they've managed to push through many negations, if I've managed to push through many negations to get at least 2 monsters onto the field, I can then use his effect to send a Branded Fusion from my deck to the graveyard to then basically make his effect into the Branded Fusion, which will allow me to go into my players. Right, fusion monsters. So we'll start with the combo pieces that I normally use. So I will normally use any high dragon or a dragon made to go into this. So then I've got an immediate negate on the field, and it will be much harder for my enemy to actually disrupt my plays, because his effect is to, as a quick effect, so I can use it basically whenever to negate the activation of a card, and if I do, destroy the card. Also after that, I can special summon a House Dragon Maid from my extra deck. And House Dragon Maid, the reason why I have 2 of these is because since I'm always going to be bouncing him back and forth, and then I could use something like Branded in Red, because she is a Dragon Maid, so I can bring her back using Branded in Red, and then I'll already have like a Fallen of Albaz or any of my other dragon mobs in my hand, and I can then go back into my Sheu as fast as possible. But her effect is if I bounce a Dragon Maid, so using any of the Dragon Maid effects like Dragon Maid Tidying, it bounces. This one bounces from the graveyard. If anything bounces back to my hand, I can then just destroy 1 card on the field. So getting into my actual combo pieces, this is Lubellion. As soon as he's fusion summoned, I can discard a card and add a special summon 1 fusion monster that's level 8 or lower from my extra deck, excluding himself, by shuffling the fusion materials from generally my graveyard or my banish pile back into the deck. So I will generally use Despian Tragedy and Fallen of Albaz to go into him, get Despian Tragedy's effect, and then shuffle back the Despian Tragedy to go into Masquerade Blazing Dragon. And then carry on combo plays from there. So, since I've just mentioned him, Masquerade the Blazing Dragon, even though he's a fiend or dragon. When he's fusion summoned, any cards that are activated by my opponent, they have to pay a 600 life point cost. It's just very good at stopping their combos and stopping them from activating effects while I'm trying to combo. And also he's a nice body on the field, because if my opponent controls a Ritual Fusion, Synchro Xyz or Link monster, I can special summon him from the graveyard when he leaves the field, but he gets banished afterwards, which I can then use Lubellion's effect to shuffle him back into my extra deck to bring out another, so let's say Predaplant Dragostapelia. Another card that's a big part of my combo plays are these 2. Let's start with Mirror Jade. So his effect is I can discard 1 of my cards from my extra deck to the graveyard, which will generally be an Albion, so I can use his effect in my end phase. And when that's basically it. Just banish one of their cards and go +1 in card advantage by grabbing a spell or trap from the graveyard, from my deck, because of him being sent to the graveyard. Also, when this card leaves the field, it does a Raigeki effect. Let's see if I can. I can't spell apparently, is it? Raigeki like that? I can't remember how to spell it. Raigeki? No, I don't know. Anyway, so he does a opponent's board wipe, which is also why I have two of them, because I like bouncing back and forth between my cards. Since I've talked about him, Albion, his effect is I can banish cards. When he's fusion summoned, I can banish cards from my graveyard, my hand, or my field to then fusion summon again. So sometimes I'll go into Lubellion to then special summon him, and then go into Albion to then special summon Mirror Jade. It's just a nice little combo. Sometimes I like sending Sprint. I don't really use him for his actual effect. He is literally discard fodder from Mirror Jade. So I can special summon a Spriggans or a Fallen Abalbaz from my deck if he's sent to from the extra deck to the field, from the extra deck to the graveyard. I apologise. Same with this chap here. I don't really use his actual effects. I just try and get a Fallen Abalbaz from my deck just by using him as discard fodder. Dragostapelia is a nice little just I don't want you to do something. It's a quick effect negate on a monster effect, so it's essentially just like Forbidden Droplet, except for instead of having the attack, it drops it to level 1 and negates its effect. So that's everything but Guardian Chimera. Right, now this card is my nice little boss monster of the deck. So the best part about him is while I've got polymerization in the graveyard, so this is always treated as polymerization, he is unaffected by card effects. So he can't be bounced, he can't be destroyed by Raigeki, he can't be targeted by let's say my Mirror Jade's Banish. He can't be targeted, which is really nice. And when I fusion summon him, depending on where I used my cards from, let's say I used 2 from the field and 1 from my hand, then I get to draw 1 card because I get to draw 2 cards because I use 2 materials from the hand, and destroy 1 card on the field because I use 1 card from the field. If all 3 of my cards are on the field, I get to destroy up to 3 cards just for free with this card. It's just absolutely fantastic. He's just a nice little boss monster, and with the cannot be targeted, it's just a really nice card to have. So that, my friends, is my deck list. It is what I use to do the little videos with that I've been putting out recently. I apologise for droning on for this long, but it does require a little bit of explanation of how I use my deck. There is a lot of combo plays that go into it, and I've thought about this deck for quite a long time for it to actually get to this point. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and if you really liked it, make sure you consider subscribing. It would really help me out, and I will hopefully catch you all in my promotion video. Have a good day.